And I was told at that appointment that my baby's heart rate was not really detectable. And they said that they would wait, but essentially I could lose the baby.
So Rona, you've been noticeably absent from social media. We've had a lot of people asking where you've gone, what you've been up to. Are you ready to share where you've been?
So I have found it really difficult to show up online because I didn't know how to tell people what I've been going through. But I think it's really important to start from the beginning and be completely honest, because through the community and the platform that I've built, I wanted to help as many people as I can, especially from a medical point of view. I think it's important that I really start from the very beginning. So I, like most people, most women in their 30s, had a lot of pressure to try and think about starting a family. When I was 32, my dad advised me to freeze my eggs, and the reason is because he's a gynecologist. He told me about the quantity and quality of your eggs changing over time. And, I didn't want the pressure. I was building a career. I wasn't in the right relationship at the time, so I thought, I'm going to do this. That was quite a harrowing process. I had documented that journey, but I got a good number of eggs, so I wasn't worried. I think a lot of people assume that when you are young and healthy, so, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't, take recreational substances, I live a really healthy lifestyle, that it's really easy to fall pregnant. And I was one of those people that it didn't happen overnight. I mean, it took 9 months, and some of you might say that's not that long, but it felt like a really long time because you spend the whole of your 20s trying to avoid getting pregnant, and then when you want to get pregnant, you struggle in a way. So I went to go see a doctor, everything was fine, my partner and I were absolutely fine. So then when I decided to look at other options, I did fall pregnant, and that was in September 2024. I was really excited and nervous. I went for my 7-week scan with my partner, and I was told at that appointment that my baby's heart rate was not really detectable, and they said that they would wait, but essentially I could lose the baby. So a couple of weeks later I was told that the baby was non-viable, and it was really scary. Again, a lot of people having a miscarriage is normal, these things happen, but no one can really describe how those emotions feel to you. So I was given the option of waiting for it to happen naturally, taking a tablet, or going into the hospital and having the suction. I decided to opt for a natural miscarriage, and it was one of the most difficult experiences of my life. I really felt like my body went into complete shock. The miscarriage for me was described as being a difficult and painful period, but I think it was much worse than having period pains or even having a period, because when it actually happened, my body went into shock. I actually started vomiting a lot. I got really sick. I had to go to hospital. Part of it happened, but the rest of it happened a couple of days later. And I remember being in the bathtub, being completely overwhelmed and having to call my husband because I didn't really know what was going on. I eventually decided to try again. I felt a lot of pressure. And again, I didn't fall pregnant instantly, which was normal because I'd only given my body about 2 months. And the doctor said to me, listen, if you're getting impatient, you can try taking some tablets. So something called Letrozole, which helps stimulate your ovulation. And I did that, nothing worked. And then in January 2025, we decided to try something called IUI, which is an in-uterine insemination, which basically means when you're at your prime of your ovulation, your partner comes in, they collect the semen, and then they basically put it inside you. It has a very low success rate, so most people don't try it, but interestingly, it worked for us. The other thing that I need to caveat is that also that week we tried. You can use my imagination. So we don't know if it was actually trying naturally or if it was from the IUI. But I think the IUI definitely gave us a good chance. I found out that I was pregnant because I had to do a blood test. So they make you do a pregnancy blood test. They don't make you do an actual, peeing on the stick thing. When I found out I was pregnant, I thought, finally I can relax into this. I can become a mum, all of these things that I thought maybe were not meant for me because it was so difficult to get to this point. It started to become a reality for me. But as the weeks went by, my confidence definitely started to grow. I was suddenly imagining this new life. I was scared though as well, right? I feel like people don't talk about this grief of what you know. And I think for me, the most difficult part was really working out how the business was going to look without me and recognizing that I'm going to have to take time off and having a baby is essentially going to change your life. There was excitement and fear together, which I think, again, people don't talk about. two truths can be true at the same time. You can be scared and you can be excited at the same time. But I was feeling really confident in the pregnancy. I went for regular scans. I was being seen at Chelsea and Westminster. They were amazing. I was being told that everything was absolutely fine. The baby was growing on the 50th percentile. I was having no complications. I didn't even get morning sickness, to be honest. The only thing that I think that was unusual now in hindsight is that my bump didn't look massive, and I got away with pretty much looking like I wasn't pregnant for ages. But again, I was reassured by people. People said to me, oh, but I had a really neat bump, or you look like you're really neat. Like, I didn't think anything of it. I think there was an emotional side to it. Like, I felt my mental health was really suffering at the time, and I think that's because I had a lot of pressure from running a clinic and also patients. Some patients not being that empathetic, I guess, really understanding. This is a massive change, and I think women are so underrated for something that is so difficult. We're not given grace. We're not, we're told to just get on with it. Our bodies are designed to do this. But I was really exhausted. I felt really overwhelmed. Imagine having PMS and then ramping up by a million times. So I found it really difficult to just turn up for work, put on my best face, be there for patients, and also dealing with being pregnant. But it wasn't a very difficult pregnancy from the point of view of morning sickness and things like that. And then I guess things dramatically changed in my 28-week scan. So I went into my 28-week scan, and I had mentioned to my obstetrician that people had commented that my bump was really small and that it was not really showing. And she hadn't seemed worried up until that point. And I remember her doing an ultrasound and her face dropped. On her ultrasound, the baby's growth was not tracking as it should have been. It had gone from being the 50th percentile to what she had determined the 9th percentile. The percentiles are basically to show you that in a group of babies, how your baby's size would be in comparison to those babies. So there's like 100 babies and so forth. So he was now going from an average sized baby to a really small baby. I didn't really understand what that meant. And then, there were all these terms being thrown at me, like we need to measure the Dopplers, we need to check, the blood flows to the different organs. And so I had to do loads of research, and I found it really isolating. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I'm speaking about this, because I look on TikTok, YouTube, and there were very few people talking about what I'm going through. And I guess there's a stigma and a judgment on what happens, and people want to blame the mum or blame circumstances. But my doctor explained to me it was due to something called placental insufficiency, which basically means that it was a problem with my placenta, and that happens at conception. There's literally nothing I could do about it. So I had been also working alongside with her a neonatal doctor, and when I went to go see him, he basically had said as well that they're going to look at the blood flow to the heart, the lungs, the umbilical cord. They said that things weren't looking great, but they wanted to get me to at least 30 weeks, because that's when it's safer for the baby to come out, and the further along the baby is, the better. But they have to balance it and weigh up against whether it's safe for the baby to stay in. So when I went to go see that doctor, he had looked, and the blood flows had changed to those various organs, but the baby was still getting blood and nutrients. The best case scenario is the baby could stay on that percentile. And actually it was even more shocking for me, because my obstetrician said that she estimated the 9th percentile, and the neonatal doctor had said he's actually tracking on the 3rd percentile. So I was really, really scared at this point and didn't know what this meant. And in my head, I was like, okay, I need to try and make at least 4 weeks if I can, because it's going to be better for the baby. So after that 28-week scan, I was told that I had to be monitored every week, and I was going in for a week later, and then they changed it to every day. And that was really difficult, because I had to manage going into work and then going into the hospital. And I remember them telling me to track the baby's movements, and I got really panicked one day because I hadn't felt him move for like an hour. And then I remember calling up the clinic and saying I have to go to Chelsea and Westminster, and a patient was about 5 minutes away. And that patient was really upset with me. And I remember thinking, I can't cope. Like, how am I going to run a business? How am I going to be there for my staff? How am I going to do all of these things, be there for patients, and have to do this? And the baby was fine, but they just said, listen, we've got to monitor you really, really closely. We got to 30 weeks, and my obstetrician was really happy. And she said, maybe we can take this to 32 weeks, but I need the neonatal doctor to just decide. I saw her on the Monday, and then on the Wednesday I went to go see the neonatal doctor, and I remember, he was pretty, I don't want to say blunt, but definitely he didn't hide his emotions and said, this is a really bad situation. Like, this is really, really bad. The baby's got even smaller, like on the graph. He said, this baby, we cannot wait any longer. He needs to come out much sooner. We can't wait. He needs to come out in 2 days. So I remember him calling up my obstetrician, and we had to take a taxi straight into Chelsea in Westminster, where I was admitted. I was admitted into Chelsea in Westminster Hospital on the 5th of August and the Wednesday, and they wanted to give me 2 rounds of steroids because the reason is the baby's lungs hasn't matured yet. I honestly feel like I went numb at that point, and I remember really thinking that I'd never given so much thought and so much weight of how difficult it is to be a female, to be expected to show up, to just think your body should just be doing this, get on with it, don't talk about it. And I think that was one of the most difficult things for me because I could not be vulnerable, even though I was probably the most vulnerable I've ever been. So after being admitted on the Wednesday, I felt pressure to go to work on Thursday. I said to my doctor, can I go down the road? The clinic's down the road, I have patients to see. I didn't have any physical symptoms because the baby wasn't ready to come out, so I was fit enough to work. And I remember the doctor saying, okay, fine, just make sure that you're back. But I remember thinking, I can't let my patients down. I can't let work down. I can't. And I think, for me, it's crazy how, society does expect us to just get on and do things. I had to go in for a CTG, and I remember doing a full day of work, and I came in at 5 o'clock, and they did the CTG, and the midwife basically looked at me. So the CTG measures the heart rate. And she said, there's decels, which basically means that the heart rate is decelerating. I have to go get the doctor. So I didn't know what was going on. So I remember calling my husband and telling him that he needs to come. And the doctor turned around and she looked at me and she said, he doesn't have an hour. This baby needs to come out now. Is he going to be okay? What does this mean? I don't even want to go back to those moments. I find it really difficult. Within seconds, he was just ripped away from me. It's what happened, and this is what I had to deal with.